Poddin My Noggin, hosted by CK Sims, creating a platform to elevate, educate, and heal by creating a space where people can share their stories of struggle, triumph, and redemption. CKS Media.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Poddin My Noggin. I'm your host, CK Sims, and this week we are joined by an extraordinary individual, Mr. Ken Kunken. Did I say it correctly?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Perfect. Welcome to Poddin My Noggin, Ken. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So, I was going through your story not too long ago, and I was just baffled. And I want to tell you why I'm baffled, first and foremost, and then we'll talk about why you're here. But I think as humans, we have a tendency to complain a lot about our life and the cards that were dealt, right? And we often will not achieve our versions of greatness because of these minuscule obstacles that have been placed in our way. And one could say that you were given a gargantuan obstacle in 1970, but you did not stop. By looking at your laundry list of accomplishments, the things that you have done in your life since then, it gives me hope for my own self, and I hope it inspires other people as well. Can you take us back to 1970? What was life like for you before the accident, if you will?
It was really great. In 1970, I was 20 years old. I had just started my junior year, and I was majoring in industrial engineering at Cornell University. I was a member of a fraternity, the Sigma Nu fraternity, and I had a lot of good friends. I have an older brother and a younger sister, and I was having a terrific life.
Terrific life. And 20 years old. 20 years old. So you were playing football for Cornell, correct?
Right. I was on their lightweight football team.
And something happened.
Yeah, it was during our fourth game of the season. I was in on the kickoff squad, and when I ran down the field, I tackled the ball carrier in a game against Columbia. And when I tackled the ball carrier, I broke my neck and severely damaged my spinal cord. And as a result, I'm almost totally paralyzed over most of my body.
Wow. What does that feel like for a 20-year-old who's loving and living life in the moment?
Well, it's devastating. I mean, if you would have asked me to describe myself before my injury, I would have told you first that I was an athlete, that I was actively doing something almost every minute of the day. And almost as an afterthought, I would say, I was a fairly good student as well. I always thought of myself as a very physical being.
Mm-hmm.
And following my injury, that totally changed.
Did you go through a period, and I don't know because you haven't talked about this in what you've provided me, but did you go through a period of, obviously there was an adjustment period for you. You had no choice, but did you go through, was it a particularly hard adjustment?
Very hard. I was in a hospital and then a rehabilitation center for the next 9 months and 20 days, and I was severely depressed during that time, and for a period of time after that as well.
I can imagine. When did it flip for you? This is a question I have because I find this. Was it a sudden realization, or was it a lot of little realizations over time?
It was very gradual. It took quite a while. It started getting better when I left the hospital and was able to go back to school and be back with my classmates. But it still took quite a period of time. And it actually started getting better after I finally got a job where I was working as a vocational rehabilitation counselor and was now in a position where I could help others. And once I saw that I still had something to offer others and that I could be of help, I started feeling much better about myself.
So, from a place of servitude is where you discovered purpose,
That's right.
which at this time, when you started working in that field, how old were you at this time? Like,
I had not yet turned 27. I turned 27 a few months after I started work. So I had been injured and paralyzed for about 6.5 years by then.
so young, 6.5 years, being paralyzed, having to relearn life, going back to school as well. Like that, we're not going to focus too much on that because I want to focus a lot on what you've done because you've done some incredible things. But just if you just think about for a second, anybody listening or watching, what it would mean to go from a physical human being to someone who lost the physicality but had to redefine who they were in this world. When you went back, you said you were taking engineering, right?
Right. I was
Did
studying industrial engineering.
did you switch when you went back?
Not initially, no. I continued with industrial engineering. In fact, I completed my junior and senior year majoring in industrial engineering. So when I
Okay.
graduated in 1973, it was in industrial engineering.
Wow. Wow. And then what brought you to, because I'm assuming there had to be school to be that, to be you were licensed nationally certified rehabilitation counselor. So there had to be a component of education with that, correct?
Right. That came later. What happened was I had a psychology professor while I was an undergraduate. That was my elective. And the professor's name was Dr. James Moss. And he took an interest in me. And he thought that I could pursue a career in counseling as a counselor and help other people. And through his guidance and recommendation, I decided to pursue a master's degree in counseling. So I stayed at Cornell University and I got a master's degree in counseling and student personnel administration. And then to increase my counseling credentials, I went to Columbia University, where I earned a second master's degree, this one in psychological counseling and rehabilitation. And then I was very fortunate to get a job with Abilities Incorporated, which is part of the Viscardi Center on Long Island, to work as a vocational rehabilitation counselor. And I work counseling other individuals who had severe disabilities.
So like just recapping for a second, you're 20 years old, you have a severe accident that changes your whole life. Not only do you go back to school and finish your undergrad, but then you also go and get a master's. But then you're like, no, 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 that's not enough. I want a second master's. And and how many years? Was it still 27?
Well, I went back to school in 1971 and I completed the schooling for my second master's in 1976. I might add, though, that after that, um, I started looking for a job in the rehabilitation counseling field, and no one wanted to hire me. Here I had 2 degrees from Cornell, one from Columbia, 2 master's degrees, and everybody felt I was just too disabled to work. And I looked for a job for a year before Abilities Incorporated on Long Island hired me to work as a vocational rehabilitation counselor.
Oh, wow. 2 master's degree, clearly drive and determination and capacity. Because masters are not easy to acquire. They're not just walks in the park here, right? You did this and you still face that. And it's, I'd like to think that today that would not happen at all. But I'm sure to many degrees, there are still barriers for people who have disabilities to
Very
get
much,
in, right? And
very
that's
much so. And
unfortunate.
it's still very difficult for somebody with a disability um, to get a job.
That's so sad. It's sad and it's, well, for lack of a better word, just stupid, to be honest, because you went for a whole year. And I'm thinking, I should always try to wear the other hat, right? Try to think from what they were thinking. there was probably just a lot of apprehension and fear. What is someone who's paralyzed almost entirely throughout his body going to be able to do? How are we going to handle that? But meanwhile, no one seemed to, until abilities, seemed to stop and think, well, hold up, he's done all these things. How do you do that? You know, and I just think, yeah, there needs to be a balance. So you started at abilities working with people who had disabilities.
Right? That's right.
And how much healing did you experience in doing that work?
A lot. Now, I might add that while everybody I was counseling had physical disabilities, I actually was the most physically disabled of all the people I was counseling. But it still helped a lot to see that they looked at me. They looked at me to give them guidance and to encourage them. And the fact that I was now working with a disability that was more significant than what they were dealing with, I could see they were looking at me as a kind of role model. And I believe it helped motivate and encourage them to do more with their lives. And it made me feel really good that now I was making a difference in the lives of others.
Yeah, that's interesting too, because I'm thinking about from a counseling perspective, you want to be able to develop a therapeutic alliance with your clients, right? Did you ever face any resistance with your clients because of your disability? But it sounds to me, actually, that you had the opposite impact. That whereas when you walk into a therapist, you always question, do they know what I'm going through? Do they really know? How are they really going to help me? Whereas somebody with a disability walking in and seeing you doing what you were doing was a clear indication that you conquered it all.
I did not face any resistance from the people I was counseling, although I must say, on a number of occasions, some people came, they looked at me and said, how can I tell you about my problems when yours seems so much more severe than mine? And I had to
Mm-hmm.
reassure them that we all face challenges in life, and their obstacles and challenges are very real to them. And I take them very seriously as well. And I did my best to help them.
I think that's brilliant. And you worked in this because I want everybody to just hold a second because if you think that that's where the story ends, that's not where the story ends at all. How many years did you work in that sort of capacity as counseling?
Okay. I worked there for 2 years and 3 months. And
Okay.
while I was working there, my duties and responsibilities kept expanding. And one of the things that I did for the center was I used to speak on non discrimination for people with disabilities, and affirmative action, and worksite modification before a lot of groups and organizations on those topics. And often after my talks, I would be asked questions. And while I do my best to answer the questions, I was always careful to caution the questioners they should really consult with a lawyer about their concerns. And I have an older brother who's a lawyer. He practices criminal law. And I guess it didn't take long before I started to think, there's no reason why I couldn't become that lawyer. So I left the center and I went to Hofstra University School of Law.
It's not like you're picking easy courses to take either. You know what I mean? Like these are not like psychology is complicated and it's difficult and it uses your mind and law is well that's a whole sort of situation in itself, a whole world inside of itself. So Hofstra University School of Law. So I have to ask now though, when did you meet your wife?
That wasn't until much later. I met my wife shortly before 2000, in 1999. I was actually looking for somebody to help me with my physical needs on weekends because I'm totally dependent on others for my physical care. I cannot dress myself or roll over in bed or wipe my nose or scratch an itch or do so many daily activities most people take for granted. So I put an ad in a newspaper looking for a weekend attendant to help me on weekends. And fortunately for me, my wife answered the ad and I hired her to help me on weekends. in 1999. And the more that we got to know each other, the more our relationship turned into a romantic relationship. And in the end of 2001, we became engaged. And in 2003, we were married.
I love this. I love this. Did you imagine that for yourself?
Never. I thought I would never get married as long as I was paralyzed. And of course, I'm paralyzed for
For
probably
life.
for life.
And
So
did you
I
think
never,
that was reason why you wouldn't get married? Is because you were paralyzed?
absolutely, I thought it may be too limiting to any woman to be married to me. And I didn't want to limit anyone with my disability. So I thought it would pose an enormous obstacle and be a deal breaker. I didn't think that my getting married would be fair to the woman. And I had an aunt named Betty who kept reassuring me that should not be a decision for me to make for the woman. That's up for the woman to decide what's best for her. And I was fortunate. My wife, Anna, um, decided this was right for her. And while, I certainly dreamed and fantasized about meeting the perfect woman for me, I never thought it would end in marriage.
You did. And your aunt is very wise, right?
She
Because
sure is.
and I think that that's the other piece as well is that love it can transcend any physicality, anything like that. And then it just takes that one person, that one right person to come into your life, perhaps when you least expect it. Um, and for that to happen. And I
You know,
think
I,
that that's
I
beautiful.
just want to add that while I had all my hesitancies, it was my wife, Anna, that actually proposed to me. She was the one to ask me to marry her.
Oh,
And
I'm liking this Anna
yeah,
lady. I think yes.
and I have to add that I guess opposites really do attract because Anna and I are different in so many ways. I mean, for one, Anna's 19 years younger than I am. Um, so in 2003, when I got married, it was shortly before I turned 53. And it was shortly before Anna turned, let's see, in 2003, Anna was 20. Oh boy, now I'm blanking on it. She was
32.
32, 30, yeah, well, close to 34. No, she was getting close to 34.
Okay.
And Anna's from Poland. And of course, I spent almost my entire life on Long Island. Anna is Catholic and I am Jewish.
Okay.
Anna's over 6 feet tall. I'm just under 5'8". And Anna's in exceptional physical condition, works out every day for hours. And I'm almost totally paralyzed. And yet it just seemed like a match made in heaven. There was
Isn't it
just a
funny how
certain
that works
chemistry
out?
there.
Yeah. And I just love that. I love the story. I love the ideology behind that. Because now you guys have been together for 21 years, married,
Right? Correct.
but around 25 together. That's incredible. Now, I popped over to your website, which others can do as well. It's kenkunken.com. So that's KenKunken.com. And I see some children in there?
You sure did. You know, when I was getting married to Anna, Anna said that she wanted to have my baby, not just a baby, my baby. She said she wanted to see a little Kunken running around our home. Now, this really seemed impossible. At that time, I had been paralyzed for more than 30 years, and I was
Mm-hmm.
already in my 50s. But we researched various options, including in vitro fertilization, and we're very excited to see that it still might be possible for someone in my condition to father a child. So we pursued in vitro, and while it took us a while, Anna became pregnant. And let me just add, on January 24th, 2005, I was present in the delivery room. I was present in the delivery room when Anna gave birth to triplets.
Fascinating. It's fascinating. Triplet boys, y'all.
We have three boys, Joseph, James, and Timothy. They're now 20 years old. They're sophomores in three separate colleges in upstate New York.
So a family that is thriving,
They
right?
sure are. We sure are.
I
Right?
love this. I love this. We are going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about 40-year chapter in the making. We'll be right back.
This month, join our Valentine's Quilt Sweepstakes, hosted by Poddin My Noggin and made by CK Sims. Enter for the chance to win the Valentine's Quilt and matching pillow by subscribing to Poddin My Noggin's YouTube channel. The sweepstakes will run from February 1st to February 28th, when the winner will be announced. Additionally, you can receive 10 extra entries by purchasing the Easy Beginners Digital Quilt Pattern Valentine's Edition. Check out the sweepstakes rules below and access the link in the description to enter today.
Partner today with CK Sims and Poddin My Noggin to get in front of an audience that cares. You will be supporting mental health stories, tales of resilience, and uplifting content, aligning your brand with bringing goodness, authenticity, and kindness front and center. This spot could be yours. Do you have a story of struggle and resilience? One that you want to share with others and possibly help someone through their own struggles? Find the link in the show description and fill out the guest form today.
Welcome back, everyone. Before the break, we were talking to Mr. Ken Kunken about his life and times since 1970 and all that he's achieved in education, love, family, all of these wonderful things that give you goosies. Now we're going to talk about law. So you had said you were giving talks on workplace modifications, people working with disabilities, and they would have questions that you would often tell them about going and speaking to a lawyer. And then you decide for yourself, after already getting 2 master's degrees and an undergraduate degree, that I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to law school, which was at, one second, there's lots of places in here. Hofstra's University School of Law. So you went to law school. How long does law school take?
Law school is 3 years.
Okay.
And I was able to complete law school in the standard 3-year time period. I completed it in a standard 3-year time period. And after my second year of law school, at my brother's suggestion, I did a summer internship at the Nassau County District Attorney's Office. And I found a new way that I could help people and serve the community as a whole. And I just fell in love with that job. So at the beginning of my 3rd year, I applied for a full-time position with the district attorney's office. And I was very fortunate that the district attorney at the time, a person by the name of Dennis Dillon, based his hiring decision on my abilities rather than my disability. And he hired me to work as a Nassau County district attorney. And I wanted to be in the courtroom, not just behind the scenes doing legal research. So I became an assistant district attorney in Nassau County.
That is incredible. So you were an ADA for Nassau County. So the sky's the limit, really. right?
right?
And this was not even remotely like just a small chapter. This was a very long 40-year chapter where you have received lots of accolades in the process of doing that. And then you, if I'm not wrong, let me wrote a book called I Dream of Things That Never Were,
Right.
the Ken Kunken story. Tell us about that process. When did that come along?
Okay. I actually started writing that book not long after I was hurt, while I was still a patient in the rehab facility. A friend of my Aunt Lorraine's came to the hospital, suggested I write a book, thought would be a good way of dealing with my depression, to be able to talk about it and to inform others what it was like to have a spinal cord injury and what rehabilitation was like. So he used to come to the rehab center once a week, and I would dictate to him. And then, of course, we stopped when I went off to college, and we'd start again and stop again. And I just left it for years. And every once in a while, I'd pick it up again. And then after I married Anna and we had our children, Anna encouraged me to finish the book. And Anna and I would sit by the kitchen table whenever we had some free time, when the boys were asleep or, going to preschool or doing something else. And we started working on the book. And I might add, I'd like to just tell you where I got the title from. I Dream of Things That Never Were. While I was still a patient in the rehab facility, I was asked to testify before a United States Senate Health Subcommittee chaired by Senator Edward Kennedy. And 8 days after my testimony, Senator Kennedy sent me a glass paperweight in the mail that had an inscription on it that the senator said his late brother Robert Kennedy liked very much. And the words on that inscription have always been very meaningful to me. The inscription read, "Some men see things as they are and say why. I dream of things that never were and say why not." That's where I got the title of my book. Excuse me. The title of my book, I Dream of Things That Never Were.
I love that. I love that. So, a memoir written through pockets of time over the course of many, many years. And when did you finish it? When did you realize that you had completed that memoir?
Okay. It finally was finished in October of 2023. And I was fortunate by a person by the name of Steve Eric, who is the head of 12 Tables Press, agreed to publish my book. So it's been out now a little over a year. It's also available as a Kindle version. And last week, we completed an audiobook for my book, and it's available on audiobook as well now.
Did you do the voice?
Yes, I recorded it. It's almost 16 hours long.
Wow. I love this. I love that. So, yeah, wow. 2024 in March, you were named one of the Long Island Business News influencers in law. Okay, I'm trying to get them all here now. There's quite a few, y'all. Then, if I'm not wrong, yes, December 2023, the Kenneth J. Kunken Award was presented by the Nassau County District Attorney's Office for the first time to an outstanding Nassau County Assistant District Attorney who personifies Ken's unique spirit and love of trial work, as well as his commitment and dedication, loyalty to his colleagues, and his devotion to doing justice. And it'll be a yearly award. So, what were you like as a lawyer?
Well, I enjoyed being in the courtroom, and I did a lot of litigation. And I was promoted a number of times. In fact, when I was promoted from our district court bureau to our county court bureau, the number of trials, pretrial hearings, and grand jury presentations I did each year were consistently among the highest in our bureau. And then I was promoted to be a supervisor. And eventually, I became one of our deputy bureau chiefs of our county court trial bureau, where I was helping supervise more than 25 other assistant district attorneys. So I enjoyed it very much.
So next step after that would have been a judge, maybe?
Well, that would have been nice, right? There was talk about that. It never actually came to fruition, but there was talk about it. Um, but I finished my career as an assistant district attorney, and I'm very grateful for that opportunity that I had.
Well, look at the ranks that you climbed in there. You know what I mean? Like the next step would have been judge, whereas you were supervising 25 other ADAs. There's no limitations surrounding you, it seems. There was just a change in path, no limitations at all. You have achieved things in your life that normal able-bodied people could only dream of. And so how do you speak to that? How do you tell someone what's behind it?
What's behind it is that I had a lot of help. I had a very supportive family and group of friends that assured me that if need be, they'd act as my arms and legs to make sure I could still do everything I wanted to do in life. And with their help and support, encouragement, I've been able to do that. I've been very fortunate.
So your support network, your friends, your family, all of those people, they gave you wings.
Absolutely. They did it, every step of the way. I couldn't have done any of the things I did without their help. And I'll always be grateful for that. I've been very fortunate.
Very fortunate, very humble, very accomplished. Like the list goes on. What do you think people are going to get the most out of your book? Or that's my first question.
Well, there are a number of things. One, I hope that when people face challenges in their life, as we all do, that sometimes it seems darkest before the dawn, but with the right attitude and through hard work, determination, perseverance, nothing is impossible. And that if everybody keeps a positive attitude and works hard, they'll be amazed at what they can accomplish. But I also want to add that when I was still a patient in a rehab facility, medical personnel seemed to think that the best I would ever be able to do would be to someday sell magazine subscriptions over the telephone. And I was determined to do more than that. And back then it was even rotary telephones, not even push button phones. So I couldn't even dial a telephone. And my message is don't set limited expectations for people because people's performance often rises and falls based upon what others expect of them. And as a result, I saw many of my fellow patients not doing a lot with their lives because they weren't encouraged to do that. They didn't have the support that I had and the encouragement that I had. And thanks to that, I was able to do a lot more than anybody ever expected. And I want people to keep in mind there's an awful lot somebody with a disability can do when given the opportunity. And just given that opportunity, they'll be amazed at what people can do. And I might add that somebody with a disability is often found to be some of the hardest workers and the best employees that an employer ever could hope to find. When I left my job at the Viscardi Center, they not only hired a full-time counselor to replace me, they had to divide additional duties I was doing between two other employees, and they later called me and asked me to be a member of their board of directors, which I'm very proud to be to this day.
What a full circle moment, right?
Right.
Full circle moment. I love that part too, where you say, where you're talking about the hospital staff sort of telling you that the best you might be able to do is selling magazines via the telephone. And I think that resonated with me in the sense that like I'm very firm in my belief that don't let other people's projections or limited beliefs hinder your growth, because they can put those chains on you, but you have the key to remove them, right?
Absolutely.
And for you, I think it's also the fact that you were surrounded by so many wonderful people who said that they'd be your arms and legs, they gave you wings, all of those things. It's it's creating those echo chambers, those situations where people are going to love and support you, but also push you to be your best. And they want you to succeed. And we have choices in that. A lot of times, I know it might be difficult when you are disabled, that you may have trouble sort of stepping away from toxic people or people who apply those limiting beliefs. But do what you can to surround yourself by those supportive people. First, anyone listening today, a few things I want to ask you. So, anyone listening today who's out there, who has a disability, who doesn't feel that they can achieve the things that they want to achieve, in what would you say to them? If you could speak to them face to face, what
Okay.
would you tell them?
That there's an awful lot people can do. Don't listen to the naysayers. Don't listen to the people that tell you it's just too difficult or too hard. It's important that you believe in yourself. And it's important that you participate. You get out there and take part in different activities. Don't just sit home waiting for something to happen to you. Good things come to you when you're actively involved in pursuing them. And there's a tremendous amount everybody can do to help others. No matter what your condition is, you can still help others. And that will make you feel so much better about yourself as well. And if you have steps along the way where you make some mistakes, learn from those mistakes and do your best to overcome them. Right. Um, with me, I'm not sure I always made the right decisions, but once I made a decision, I made it work out. I made it the right decision. And I think it's important for people to, you know, not give up, never give up. There's always a lot you can do.
I would be suspicious if somebody went through life and didn't make mistakes, right?
Right.
Like I find that mistakes are the backbone of your character. That's what that helps you develop and to grow. And so making mistakes is okay. It's a part of the process. It's definitely a part of that journey to reaching your version of success. So your book is available in Kindle format. It's available in stores and online.
Right. An audio version. And if they go to my website, kenkunken.com, it'll tell you a number of different ways where they could order the book.
And if you want to see lovely pictures of his family, you can do this on kenkunken.com as well. You can see the lovely Anna, who he has spoken so fondly about during our interview today. And you can see his 3 children. I have a question. When I was looking at that picture, I saw you being very active, and it looked like you were very active and very present in your children's lives. What was that like to have 3 children? I mean, so, but I mean, your wife's not being interviewed at this moment, but I also wonder, what was it like for Anna to have 3 children, and you as well? Like, so she's a primary caregiver for 4 people.
Right.
So,
Right.
what was that like for you, though, to have 3 children?
The greatest thing in the world, the greatest experience in the world. I absolutely love being a father and helping guide them. And when, we first talked about having children, I was very concerned that I wouldn't be able to be a good father because, I couldn't have a catch with my son or, dance with my daughter or do so many other things that fathers do with their children. And Anna convinced me that there was still a lot I could do. I am an uncle to a lot of nephews and nieces, and I've always enjoyed being their uncle and helping them in any way that I can. And Anna encouraged me that I could still be a good father. And thanks to Anna, uh, we went through it. I've been trying to take an active role in my boys' life ever since they were born. And I try and help impart the right values and make sure they grow up with the right character to be good individuals and to help others. And they do that. They do that and they help each other and they believe in the importance of family and helping each other. And they're just wonderful, wonderful kids. And I've done my best to help guide them that way.
Well, it sounds like they kind of won the lottery when it comes to character of parents to raise them, right? So, if you look at, say, both your life and Anna's life and all that you've done in servitude for others, what better role model could you ask for in that situation?
Thank you.
Uh,
Well, they have an incredible mother who never stops working and doing something active, and
mo- the
that's
mom's off screen. She can duck in camera if she
you want
wants
to
to.
come on.
Just to say hi.
Come on, Anna. And
Hi,
more, a little
Anna.
more. Here's
There
Anna.
you go.
And when they were little, initially we had a nanny helping out, but there were times when we didn't. And just to give you an idea how the mealtime went, we'd have the three boys in the high chairs around the table with me at the table, and Anna would give Joey a bite of food, then she'd give Jimmy a bite of food, then Timmy a bite of food, then Daddy a bite of food. Mommy would take a bite and go around the circle again, and that's how we got through mealtime on some of those days. So it's been a challenge, but a great challenge.
Challenge, but I think just the commitment is really beautiful there, right?
Right?
The commitment by everyone in the family. Um, she wanted children. You didn't know if you wanted or would be a good dad, but you did that together. And it sounds very much like you built a partnership in this life. Um, And yeah, so I mean, for me, I'm inspired. I was inspired reading your website. I was inspired looking at the pictures of your life and seeing how you've shown up for yourself. I was inspired by just absolutely everything that you've done um, in the face of disability, really, in spite of disability. Here's your situation, but look at what you've achieved.
Thank
So everybody at home can head over to kenkunken.com. You can check out podcast episodes. You can find out where his book is. You can see events where you may be speaking next. Do you still do a lot of that speaking, public speaking?
I've done probably over the years about 30 different talks. I still have another two scheduled right now. And lately I've been doing a lot of podcasts.
Well, podcasts are great. You're an excellent guest. And support Ken by going out and purchasing I Dream of Things That Never Were, a Ken Kunken story. Visit his website. Ken, thank you so much for being on Poddin My Noggin. I appreciate it immensely.
Thank you for having me as a guest and giving me the opportunity to share my story with your listeners.
You're very welcome. It was my pleasure. To everyone at home, thank you for tuning in to another week of Poddin My Noggin. Get out there and live your wildest dreams.
For media and sponsorship inquiries, email info@ccsims.com or visit ccsims.com and fill out the contact form. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. A new episode airs every Saturday. CKS Media.